Hi guys, Coach Carter here. Just wanted to make a video about our squat progression exercises. So this is before we get in the weight room and start throwing on a lot of weight. We want to really make sure our kids have the hip flexibility to do a proper squat. We'll do these exercises really year round with any high school age kid that I have in the weight room, but specifically for a young freshman or a young sophomore who's never lifted, these exercises, in my opinion, are critical. So when we're talking about hip flexibility, there's a lot of really cool exercises you could do with hurdles. There's a lot of stretching exercises you can do, but these are more focused on getting kids prepared to squat properly in the weight room. But in regard to hip flexibility, that directly correlates to on-field injury prevention. So, if a kid has really tight hips and he goes out on let's just say the football field, he's more likely to get injured with that inflexibility. If we can loosen up his hips through the weight room exercises, through stretching, well, now he goes on the field and his chance of injury is now lessened. So I think as a coach, as a strength coach, as a sport athletic coach, our goal is keep kids safe, keep kids on the field healthy, and that's definitely one of my main goals as well. So let me just go down this sheet real quick. Why do we do progressions? To prepare the ankles and hips for full range of motion. Many kids just start with tight hips, and we got to loosen those bad boys up before we actually start throwing on some weight. Progressions will make this happen. Progressions will help kids get the flexibility. Having a kid squat a lot with either lightweight or heavyweight will not get him flexible in the hips. Okay, he might improve a little bit over the course of his high school career, but I've seen it, unfortunately, when I was a young coach. A freshman with tight hips, high squatter, ends as a senior with tight hips, high squatter, unless he does certain exercises to fix these imbalances. So the cues I have just for general squatting, I want the feet slightly wider than the hips. So I wish I had a better cursor, but the hips, feet are just slightly wider. That way we can get the knees to track over the toes. Obviously when you get some heavy weight, you want a nice stable foundation, and that slightly wider stance or that slightly wider base will give you that strong foundation to lift heavy loads. I want the eye straight. Keep a big chest as you're going down. There's drills that we're going to do to help with that. I want to avoid looking down because now the shoulders are going to curl forward. I want to extend the knees and hips at the same pace. Real common error I see with squatters is they'll extend their knees too fast, which is going to put a lot of stress on their low back when they're lifting. So you want to get the kids doing, and then this is going to be taught on air with these progression drills, extend the knees and hips at the same time. If you see the butt kind of spike up when you got a kid squatting, that means they're usually extending their knees too fast, and now you're going to put a lot of load on your low back, which obviously can lead to injuries. Again, keep knees over toes as you're going through the squatting motion. Hopefully you'll be able to see that on the video. Here's a controversial point, but my goal is to get kids below parallel, okay? Parallel obviously is pretty close. I want to get kids to go as low as they can go with proper form. I heard the De La Salle strength coach talk a couple years back in Vegas, and he just had a great talk about, I want my kids to go ass to grass if they're able to do it with good form. You can't just tell a tight kid to go ass to grass. His heels will come up. He'll probably fall flat on his face. But when they get the flexibility, again, range of motion, how low can they go with good form? How can we expand our athletes' range of motion to, again, hopefully keep them safe on the field? So in the videos, you'll see most of the time I'm going below parallel, and that's the goal hopefully we can get for all our athletes. And definitely keep your heels on the ground. Once the heels come up, you get pressure shooting to the knee, which is no good, especially with heavy loads. So a lot of these cues will be ironed out as we get through these progression exercises. As a coach, you'll see them, and you want to see these abnormalities happen during the progressions, during these progression exercises. That's when you can correct it. I would love to correct a kid with his knees tracking outside of his toes on air rather than when he's got 225 pounds on his back. So let's correct these cues on air and in these exercises before we ever go into the weight room with weight, and now we're keeping kids safe. So quickly, let me get into the actual exercises. So I actually added a new one. So the first one we have is overhead squat on air. I feel like this could be a real great warm-up exercise. So when you have the hands up, it's going to force, let me first play the video. When you have the hands up, it's going to force the chest to stay big. And again, I'm trying to go as low as I can go with good form, especially day one, week one, really month one. Your kids won't be able to go this low, as you see in the video. But again, they're learning how to bend the ankle, knee, hip, and keeping the hands up is going to force that chest to stay nice and big. So I think this could be a great warm-up exercise. Really, you should do this year-round with all your kids, but especially if we're talking about newbies, no training experience in the weight room, these basic arm exercises, lower body, on-air exercises can really get your kids in those right movement patterns. Second video I'll show you on quickly is iso squat. So the theme of these exercises is they start from least intense and they work down to most intense. So again, if you're on a time constraint, again, I would probably work my way from top to bottom, maybe start with the top two, and as they get more flexibility and more strength, you can start moving down this list. I would not be using weight in the weight room until they can master all these exercises. So we have iso squat. So this is essentially, I'm holding the bottom of the squat movement as low as I can with my heels on the ground in good form. If you want to put the hands up, that's perfectly fine. I think the hands straight ahead to start with iso and eccentric movements will help the kids get a little lower. But again here, the idea is I'm holding it, I'm holding the bottom position. I'm teaching my body to go as low as I can with good form in a slow pattern. So you can usually hold this for a 3-second or a 5-second count. As you can see here, my heels are on the ground, my chest is big, my butt is below my knees, I'm below parallel. I would be really thrilled if I can get all my kids in the weight room to do this. They can get there over time. But the isometric part of this is that I'm holding the bottom. So if I had a big group of kids, I would say iso squats, ready, down, 3, 2, 1, up, and they'd all come up together. And I can start with 3 seconds, I can progress to 5 seconds as they get more strength. If your kids can't go this slow, which they probably won't be able to right away, that's fine. Have them go as low as they can with good form. And it's going to be amazing. You're going to start seeing your kids over weeks and months start getting lower and lower. They might start with their butt up where this rope is, and over time it's going to drop and drop and drop to the parallel or below parallel position. And the great part about this is that it happens without weight, where there's no risk of injury. So that's kind of the theme again of all my progression videos, is let's get kids in the correct movement patterns before we put weight on their back. Okay, moving on here to tempo squat. So now we're moving down at a controlled pace, as you'll see here. So usually a 3 count, I would say 3, 2, 1, and the kids would come up. And I want them to go down at a slow, consistent pace. I don't want them to jump down and hold like iso. This is starting high, dropping low, going as low as you can with proper form. And again, as the coach, I would say 3, 2, 1, up. And they're all moving in the same progressions with me. And if you have a big group, these are kind of fun to do. The kids are all kind of moving together. It's kind of like a little symphony. They can kind of see each other and stay on tune by watching each other. So we move from iso to tempo. Probably the most efficient exercise on this list, if I'm being completely honest with you, is band squat. If you have elastic bands, they're a home run to do this exercise. Essentially what you're doing is you're wrapping the band around a pole, and it's going to hold your trunk up as you're squatting through full range of motion. So I don't have a great band here, but essentially as you go down, the band's going to stretch, hold your chest up, and you're going to get your trunk and your hips through that squatting position. So this is a real great warm-up exercise. If kids run in the weight room after jogging, hey, give me 15 band squats. They get on the band, loosen up those hips before they ever get weight on the bar. This is something you can do year-round with all your kids. This is definitely a staple of my program. It's great for new lifters. It's great for lifters that are just trying to get warmed up, and it's great for older lifters to just keep that range of motion. So definitely star and highlight band squat if you're really on a time crunch. Okay, moving on to drop squats. This has some Olympic lifting properties to it, since when we're Olympic lifting in the clean, we're going to have to drop under the bar. So this has some carryover effect, but it's great to teach the hip flexibility in our young athletes. Essentially, they start in the high position, drop down, let their feet and their hips move. Let their hips move through their feet as they drop. So let me shut up and you guys can hear the feet popping. So gravity is doing the work here. And the hips, so once the body releases, the hips will continue with gravity to go a little lower. And that's going to get a passive stretch and some movement in those hip muscles, which again, what we're looking for, we're trying to improve the flexibility in our athletes, especially with the hips, which start usually really, really tight. Again, a real easy one. I'll say ready for the kids are all staring at me. Ready, blow the whistle, they all drop and come up. Blow the whistle, they all drop and come up. You can, again, throw the hands up for most of these exercises. Outside of overhead air squats, just to start, I like to start the kids with their hands straight because they get a little bit more range of motion in the hips when the hands are straight or down. But as they get more advanced, you can throw the hands up. Okay, moving into jump squats. So we're getting a little bit more intense as we work our way down. This would be the most ballistic or the most explosive out of all the movements. So now I am jumping up and letting gravity pull me down. The biggest cue on this is you want the kids to land on their heels. You want to land flat-footed. So my heels slightly come up here, but if the toe and you land on the ball of the foot, well, now you're going to get a lot of stress on the knees, and the kids are probably going to fall forward. So for this exercise, you want to teach them to land flat on their feet. So let me play from the start again. Triple extend and drop. Triple extend and drop. And the cue on this isn't as much jumping as high. It's not like a vertical jump exercise. We want them to just jump and get some more aggressive force moving down on their hips. Again, though, the theme is starting more static, more slow, and gradually moving up to more explosive movements. If you just started with jump squats, you'd get kids that fall over, land on their heels because they don't have that hip flexibility to actually land in the full squat position. Okay, last exercise on this progression sheet. Now I'm going to add some weight to the front of my chest. So you could use 2 dumbbells like a normal dumbbell front squat. In this video, I just used 1. So now I'm going through the full range of motion with the squat, holding that weight in front of me, again to get a little more force down on the hips to increase that range of motion. Again, as you can see, as is the goal of all the videos that I've shown you, is to get the hips in this position, right? Repetition is the mother of learning. I like to say routines are the mother of learning as well, but when we continually rep this position that you see in the video over here, when we continue to get the body down there and gradually increase the flexibility, it's going to get that muscle memory translated to when I'm squatting 300 on the rack. But that again is what we're looking for in terms of positions. Okay, programming in terms of how do I build these into a daily workout? They're usually done as warm-ups. I kind of explained them as you guys watch the videos, but these aren't really, we can do dumbbell front squats as an exercise. We can do jump squats with dumbbells definitely as an exercise, and we do, but generally with the non-weighted versions of these lifts or these movements are done as warm-ups, traditionally 5 to 10 minutes before we ever get inside the weight room. So if you got big groups, if your whistle is your friend as a coach, keep them on track, 3, 2, 1 up, take a break, ready positions, and then we gradually go into the weight room with weight. So hopefully you got a good idea of how these exercises can be used to loosen up your kids. Get the hips loose. Don't have 50 football players that are freshmen start squatting with weight. Okay, the flexibility is not going to be there. Now again, I coach in football. I don't want to spend a month on air squats, right? I got to get my kids strong. But if you're slowly incorporating the weight while you're incorporating these movements daily or weekly, however you see your kids, that's when the flexibility and the range is really, really going to improve. So let's hopefully you guys can pick up a few good tips, and thanks for watching.